Whenever we analyze any of our markets, we have to pay a particular attention to its growth drivers, which are effectively factors that have contributed to the evolution of this market to reach to this certain point and to its forecast or its outlook. Now, some of these growth drivers are market-specific and need to be tailored for that specific country. Others are more omnipresent across several of our consumer-based industries. These include population growth, GDP per capita growth, or any income-based metric, urbanization rates, and the like. Now, these factors effectively feed into our forecasts. These forecasts could be global-based forecasts, such as a global price shock or any kind of shock that rocks international markets, or they could be regional or country-specific. Now, one recent scenario that has arisen is the potential effects of a Trump trade war on several industries in the market currently. Upon completing his first 100 days in office, President Trump has renewed his offensive on international trade agreements that are based in the United States or based in that region. For example, NAFTA is now under scrutiny, as well as the United States WTO membership. Now, of course, the repercussions for each of those and several other trade agreements globally will be felt in the Western Hemisphere for sure. However, our industry forecast model has actually seen a potential effect on numerous industries located in the Middle East itself. So, if we assign a 13% probability to what we've dubbed a Trump trade war to the region, and list some of these industries. For example, in the Middle East, the dairy industry, which has a very active trade sector, will see a decline of approximately 18,000 tons, which set into context may not seem that large of a decline, but if we look at these growth drivers behind this decline and what's causing, how that ripple effect is reaching over all the way from the West over to the Middle East, we can see that there are other potent effects that need to be considered in our analysis, which really highlights why we want to pay particular attention to what we've referred to as these growth drivers. The statistical model that we use is based on a data sample of several of these metrics that we've collected in a time series format for several decades. It'll effectively run a regression and measure how these variables impact the growth or the forecasted growth of the dairy industry. If we take a look at a specific case study, for example, Saudi Arabia, we can see that a Trump trade war would bring down its GDP growth, at least the forecast of its GDP growth, by 0.25 percentage points, leading up to 2018. And it'll only really recover back to the baseline by 2019. Now, such a staunch effect on a country's income generation on a per capita level will really affect consumers' willingness to spend, even for a staple industry such as dairy, and it'll also affect local manufacturers. For example, Almarai, who has a wide business range across the Middle East and Africa, will see that it'll be more difficult to conduct trade and to really export its products if Trump's trade policies really start to ripple across the water, which is why this feeds into the industry forecast that we have here. This also doesn't take into account other sourcing factors for inputs, which are a global market, and other trade-based effects that really will reach over across the Atlantic and reach us over here in the Middle East.